Another episode of Better Humans at Work. I'm Dr. V, and today we're going to get real because things are real right now when it comes to anti DEI. And what is blaringly deafening is the silence of all these so called allies who were all about DEI when it was the latest fad and trend. A friend of mine sent me this article this morning by Sean Harper about how friends and allies are shockingly silent as DEI is being dismantled. And I included the link to this article in the caption for the video today. And the summary is essentially DEI is under attack, and there's so many so-called allies that are just nowhere to be found. The people that posted hashtag BLM or attended DEI events or even profited off of their proximity to DEI work. Think about all the brands that get super rainbow during Pride Month or, capitalize off of Black History Month. They're letting diversity officers be fired. They're letting funding be slashed, and they're letting anti-DEI legislation spread unchecked. And as Harper reminds us in his article, there comes a time where silence is betrayal, and that time is now. So in this live stream, I want to do two things. First off, call out the performative allies who have disappeared. And secondly, more importantly, is lay out exactly what real allies need to be doing right now. So first, let's make this very, very clear. Allyship is not an identity. You aren't just an ally because you say you are. Allyship means action. Too many people love the idea of allyship, but not the responsibility of it. These so-called allies have enjoyed credibility, speaking engagements, praise for doing the work when it's trendy, but allyship is not just some title you can claim and hold on to. It's an ongoing commitment you have to live every single day. Real allies don't get to be selective in the type of work they do. And if you're silent now, I would question if you were ever really an ally to begin with. Also, let's focus on not these performative allies saying, I'm an ally, but not actually doing the work. Let's speak up and focus on what we should be doing right now as allies. So first of all, speaking up publicly and loudly. DEI opponents aren't staying quiet, so neither should allies. Silence lets misinformation win. And if you're in a leadership role, if you're on social media, if you're in any position of influence, start talking now. Push back on misinformation. Call out lies about DEI being reverse racism or illegal. It's not. If you aren't a federal contractor, those executive orders do not qualify your organization. DEI is not illegal in the public sector, the private sector right now. Also, challenge your company, your school, or organizations that you're involved in. If you hear DEI being downplayed, ask directly, what is our commitment to DEI right now? What protections do our employees, our students, our members have? And use your identity, use your privileged identity to amplify marginalized voices. So share the perspective of those directly impacted. Don't just give your own take, like how I am sharing out Harper's article today, wanting to share his voice, share his stance, and build upon it, not just share my own POV. Take a moment to think about this. When's the last time that you publicly advocated for DEI? If never, why not? And if it's been a while, then why? And how can we get back in the driver's seat of this? So the first was get loud. Second is protect DEI in the workplace. Corporate America loved when DEI was a selling point. And now the same leaders are quietly gutting programs, hoping no one will notice. If you have any influence whatsoever at work, here is how to stand up and step up for DEI. First off, support and shield diversity officers. Many CDOs, chief diversity officers, are getting fired or pushed out. Show up for them. Push for transparency. If leadership is quietly cutting DEI funding, ask what are we going to do to ensure continued progress? And hold your company accountable. If they made DEI pledges in 2020, are they still honoring them? And if not, why? In Harper's article, he mentions how chief diversity officers are being fired and DEI initiatives are being dismantled in private companies. If this is happening in your company, what are you doing about it? Okay, so we're going to be loud. We're going to protect DEI in the workplace. Third, we're going to show up in political and legislative spaces. Anti-DEI legislation is spreading disgustingly fast, which means allyship isn't just about the workplace, it's about fighting back in public policy. First off, know what's happening in your state. There's over 30 active anti-DEI bills right now. Do you know if your state has one of them? Contact your legislators, call, email, demand that they vote against these bills. Public pressure does work. It really does. Donate to organizations that are fighting back. So groups like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the ACLU, and other local racial justice organizations, and they need resources. So reach out. I know for myself, I just donated to a organization that supports Black maternal health, right? Because it's abysmal in this country. And that's part of DEI is maternal health, especially for a population that has far worse outcomes, Black women, for maternal health compared to white women. So I donated. I'm not an expert in that space, but I care about that cause. And so I donated to that effort. All right. Fourth, support marginalized colleagues and friends consistently. In Harper's article, he calls out the way DEI support was often temporary and superficial. Real allyship is about showing up every day, not just in crisis moments. So check in on colleagues who are impacted. Make sure that their work up to this point is not being erased. And don't assume that people are okay. Ask, how are you doing with this? I've had a number of people reach out to me about DEI and how I'm doing as a DEI practitioner, and I belong to far more marginalized groups than many of my peers. Sponsor and mentor. If you're in leadership, elevate marginalized voices in hiring, promotions, and decision making. So make sure that we're continuing to do that work within our organizations. And then commit for the long haul. Ask yourself, am I as committed to DEI now as I was in 2020? And if the answer is no, what can you do to fix that? Are you still showing up or have you disappeared? And Harper says in his article so poignantly, with friends like these, who needs enemies, right? If we're not actively fighting against the opposition, we're just as bad as the opposition. So we need to get into fight mode. And then the final question I want to ask you all that are tuning in, thanks for tuning in live. If you have any questions or comments, please drop those in the chat. I'm happy to respond to those. The final question for all us so-called allies out there, why are we silent? Why are we silent? Why are you silent? Harper asks in his article, what would they really use by leveraging their platforms, networks, data, intelligence, reputation, influence, resources, and power? What would we really lose as allies? So let's ask the uncomfortable question, why are so many former DEI champions silent right now? Is it fear? Are you afraid of backlash? If so, remember, marginalized communities don't have the luxury of opting out of this work. Is it career concerns? Is it that speaking up for justice maybe jeopardizes your job? What does that say about your company? And is it burnout? Yes, advocacy work is tiring work, but privilege is being able to step away from the fight, and some of us don't have that option. So here's your call to action. If you've been silent, take this video as your wake-up call. Martin Luther King said there comes a time when silence is betrayal, and that time is now. So let's stand up, fight back, be loud, be courageous, use your influence, use your privilege, use your platform, use your status for good, and fight back against all of this DEI, anti-DEI garbage that we're facing right now. Thank you for all you do to help us be better humans at work. Please drop a note in the comments if you can think of more ways allies cannot be silent